All right, Brian, welcome to this could be the 73rd, I don't know, it could be something over the 70th edition of Failure Podcast. We have taken a long break. You and I know each other from sort of outside of work, and you've got some pretty interesting background, though early in your career, in sales. In one area we wanted to get into, there's this common phrase, common term, which is you have to listen in sales. I figured we just sort of bullshit our way through that, as we always do on this podcast. Try not to make it too substantive, which is usually not a risk. Mm-hmm. But first, a little bit on your background.
Yeah, for sure. So I went to Lafayette College, so graduated in 2020, right when the pandemic hit. Actually played basketball there at Lafayette.
Really?
Yeah. So played basketball at Lafayette.
I don't know much about basketball, but what position?
I'm shooting guard.
Okay.
Yeah, so not athletic at all, but can put the ball in the hoop.
Let me ask you this though, for all these parents who are pushing their kids into athletics early on with hopes they will get a scholarship. Did you get a scholarship for basketball?
I got a partial scholarship.
Did it cover anything meaningful? Or was it just enough to say it was a scholarship?
Well, yes and yes. Lafayette is, I think undergrad, it's just under $70K. So
it's expensive, yeah.
It's a lot. So definitely got some benefits there.
Okay, good.
But it's
so all those years of being helicopter parenting and on Saturday, I guess soccer for you, but basketball paid off.
Yeah, it definitely did.
But so you graduated and ended up at some well-known company.
I did, yeah. So a little context prior to that. So I interned with Salesforce, which is known as being the company with the top sales training in the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Really just pour a lot of time, and it's a really great product as well.
Yeah.
But they really hone in on your sales skills, building your career. The idea is if you start at Salesforce, you prove yourself there, you can kind of go anywhere and lead a team. So
how is their turnover? Do you know? And with folks like you who are sort of fresh out of school, who start with called the Salesforce team, because I assume everyone's got a team.
Yeah.
How many of those folks? Is it one of those things where they say, look on your opening day, look left and right? Two of you won't be here.
They don't say that, but it's, it takes a lot to stick around. It's a lot of, and we can get into this too, but you really have to work your way up in sales. There's no real way to go about it.
And I assume you work your way up in sales by selling stuff.
Exactly, improving yourself.
Okay, so you talked with Salesforce and a bunch of other companies when you left school in the middle of the pandemic.
Exactly. Salesforce, and then
mid 2020.
Exactly, mid 2020. So had Salesforce, and then once I graduated, I was looking for similar companies. I found HubSpot, which is in Boston, and that's where I'm at now. And I started right after graduation in June. And
so HubSpot is roughly the same size as Salesforce.
No, no. The goal is to be, but no, not at all.
Well, roughly, what? Are they in the same business as Salesforce?
Same business,
and
yes.
What is that business? Because we used to have one listener, but with this long hiatus, we've already had no listeners. But in case the person stumbles back into the den and tries to turn on the TV but gets this podcast instead, what do these two companies do?
Yeah, so Salesforce is full-blown CRM, so customer relationship management. Okay. So HubSpot, we are really honing, we really specialize in marketing and sales specifically.
Yeah.
So when you think about who we sell to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sales is, to me, marketing versus sales, because I never really understood the difference, and I now get it more. Marketing is more the shotgun approach where you blast out information to a huge audience, hoping that you'll either get them to get your business name in the back of their mind, or hopefully the front of their mind. Sales is sort of the next level on sort of that scale, where you then start contacting an individual person. What's the difference in marketing and sales?
Yeah, great question too. So it really depends on each industry too.
Yeah.
But one thing I would say with marketing, right? So when I think about marketing, there's so many different things that come to mind. There's billboards, there's print, there's newsletters. With these, with HubSpot, we're more focused on digital marketing.
Yeah.
So everything from like advertisements, SEO, search engine optimization, like content creation, blogging on your website, and
Okay. So it is stuff generally not directed at an individual, but a population, a demographic.
So we call it actually like one to many.
Okay. Yeah.
Marketing.
So when does sales? Where on that spectrum is sales?
Sales is one to one. So when you think about sales, like especially in like earlier companies, it's a lot of like they don't have the resources to be pouring in. They don't have thousands of dollars to be pouring into like paid advertisements or stuff like that.
Which would be marketing.
Which would be marketing, correct. Like what they're doing is they're just cold calling. They're going on LinkedIn.
So that's sales.
That's sales.
And what about I have some experience with companies do if you do a blanket email campaign, that's marketing, but where you customize the email based on information you've learned about the recipient of each email, that must blur the line between marketing and sales, or is no.
There you go. That's like HubSpot's.
Oh.
That's HubSpot right there. So like with HubSpot's marketing hub, this is marketing specific, and I think like the whole goal of marketing too is to get sales good leads. Correct. And to get
or to soften up, or to soften the population up for cold calls, or to get incoming calls, which are great leads.
Yes.
And then somewhere in between.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And if you're getting inbound calls, that's a good sign because you're selling something that people already want, which is half the reason why I was attracted to HubSpot. Anyways.
Okay. And by the way, how much of this do you learn in college?
No.
So this is all
I did not.
Stuff.
This is all just like selling the product and selling the vision. So to kind of take a step back, right? Like with HubSpot. So have you heard of inbound marketing before?
Yeah, I've heard of it, but
okay.
There's a lot of sort of BS in your business, which is hard to sort of dig through.
Yeah.
Also,
so
it seems like a new label on something that's been around forever.
Yeah,
that's what they call it marketing.
Right, that sounds right.
So let's talk about what does it mean? What does it mean to, as a salesperson, to listen? Because I've run into various views. Some people say it means you've got to do a lot of small talk just to set up the conversation. And I still can't understand this answer. You've got to do a lot of small talk to set up the conversation about the kids, the drive over, and such and such. I've heard other people say that you simply walk in and say, how can we solve your problem? With sort of no background at all. And I've heard other people say, which I think is the better approach, which is, well, when you're in sales and you're actually in front of somebody, you've got a meeting. When you've got a meeting, whether it's by phone or in person, you go through small talk. I mean, it's just part of pleasantries. Go through that. And then you say, look, thanks for taking the time. Generally speaking, in the old days, you would just babble at them. You would just tell them, I'm with this law firm. This is what we do. We are great. And you just sort of throw this crap at them and just bang them with this stuff. And then before they got a word in edgewise, you'd walk out. And that was sort of the 1950s and 60s approach, I think. Yep. At least the impression we had were given in the 80s and 90s is that that's what happened before. Then this notion of listening came in. And I have to think what it meant was, you walk in, you go through the pleasantries. I mean, we are trying to be civil.
Yeah.
You tell them a bit, thank them, and you tell them a bit about what you're there for, generally what you do. And then you say something like, but before we get started, let's make sure we're on the same page. What are you guys looking for when it comes to X? So you focus the conversation. Then you say, what might theoretically we help you with there? Because if I'm selling plumbing services, I don't care about their legal issues. If I'm selling legal issues, I don't care about the plumbing.
Yes.
So what is in that whole range of sort of possibilities? What does it mean as a salesperson? Because you're a salesperson more than in training. You're a salesperson. What does it mean to listen?
Well, I think you did a really good job of explaining it. I think to start with your first point of just like the pleasantries, I think becoming more just like a trusted advisor to the person you're speaking with is really important because you want to come off as genuine. But you also want to come.
Do you not want to be genuine? You simply want to come across as genuine, or you actually want to be
genuine?
Well,
you want to be genuine.
Okay.
And you want to be honest to a point where like you only want to solve a problem that you only want to solve a problem that you actually can solve. And I think that's just like being a good person, like having like business ethics almost.
How do you avoid, sorry, gone down a really important path, which is in the end, you've got to feed your family. You as a salesperson have to feed your family.
Yeah.
And if you're in the plumbing services realm and an electrical or a legal problem comes up, you're probably like, that's not me. But if the person says, my lawn, it's got grubs, and I understand water can drown grubs, or maybe they just say my lawn has grubs and I'm a plumber, I might say, well, we don't often do it, but sometimes we take care of grubs by flooding the lawn, and we can set up that sprinkler system for you.
Yeah.
I know that's a push, but it's hard for the plumber who's got to feed his family or her family. It's hard not to kind of stretch.
Yep.
So you open that door. So close it or help us close it.
Yeah. Well, I think that just comes down to like where you spend your time, like what company you're at or what you do. I think like there's going to be some people that are worth your time and some people that aren't. And like as a salesperson that's selling some, like for plumbing, it's a little bit different. Like you very much have, like you want to be spending your time on people that are going to give you like lucrative plumbing deals. If there is such thing as that, right? Like you don't want to be spending your time on like, maybe I can do this job. I'll get it, 3 out of 5 stars. It'll be okay. I'm like, I'm not going to like, I think at the end of the day, you want to get promoters. You want to get people that like, you can do a really good job. Like, you can do a really good job. You do a really good job. And then the people tell you that you did a really good job. And then the people tell other people that you did a really good job. So
then that's a good point. I guess the other side of that for the plumber who's decided he's also going to go into lawn care and kill your grubs, maybe the answer is, oh boy, my core expertise is in classic plumbing, which is connecting pipes up inside the house, brazing copper pipes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And this person has a grub problem. Sure, we could potentially do this. We would have to quote them to be competitive. If I'm a plumber, I may say, well, I have grubs myself, and I know that anyone else doing something like this would probably cost $500 for a treatment, or $300 to $200 for a treatment. For me to flood the lawn with water, kill the grubs, it's probably not going to be effective, and it's probably going to cost $10,000 in piping, but I'd have to quote it at $500 to $200 to $300 or whatever to be competitive. So I'm willing to do that, but I'm probably not going to get a great review. It's going to be 2 stars because grubs have to learn how to swim, or they have little grub lifeboats, and so many of them are going to live anyway, and I'm going to lose a lot of money. So there are constraints on all the stretches you might put in. So I guess we can come back to your point, which is you not only have to appear legitimate or honest or trustworthy, you actually have to be so.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back.
You do, and I think just something to tie that together is like, you don't know how many more times you're going to be doing business with that person.
Right.
If they trust you and you're saying, hey, honestly, this isn't my forte, but I know someone who can do it for you, really cost effective.
Right.
You're good. Next time you have a plumbing problem, you'll probably get in that call.
Or you may not.
You might not. If you do a good job. Yeah. I mean,
how much time do you waste on those kind of calls? We had a battery go out on the side of the car, which seems unusual. What year is it? Like 2020, 2021? Yeah. Actually, a battery died on the car. It's like, wow. So we called somebody up and they said, hey, it's exactly what you said. Hey, we could actually do a great job on this. We would send over a whole tow truck and we would tow you back to our shop and we would put a battery in. But it turns out there's another service out there where they'll send the guy with the battery and they'll put it in. It costs you a fraction of what we would charge you. I don't know if I'll call. So I thanked them. I actually called them back and thanked them. Yeah. But I'm not sure I'll ever call them back. And how much time should they have spent with me, the first company, before they sent me to the second company? Because I may have never called the first back. I was super happy with them. Yeah.
Well, I think there's something that's a little bit different from like software and like what we're talking about too. That I think is important to mention. And I think it's like it's convenient. A lot of this stuff is like convenience based. And I think like if there's a problem that is urgent enough to solve, of my toilet's broken or I need this done for my lawn.
Yes.
Very much of the time, at least to my viewpoint thinking, it's the first person in the door is most likely going to get the business.
Okay.
Okay. And I think with software, like a lot of times you're evaluating a lot of different people or different solutions.
Yeah, correct. So there's a lot of competition to keep in mind.
Yes.
Okay. So what? So
sorry.
I have too many questions.
No, you're good.
So what does it mean to listen?
Yeah, I think so. One, first off, being a trusted advisor is important.
Yep.
Showing that you care and listening. So I always like to start my calls with like, hey, like I traditionally have an agenda of how I'd run these calls just to show that I've, prepared and I think like I'm excited for this meeting.
Yeah.
But I always like to kick it over to you first. Anything you're looking to get out of today's call, like
What
can I do?
You're calling? I guess they must know why you're calling.
So this is on like a set meeting.
A set meeting, in other words, it's not a cold call. And through inbound marketing or otherwise, you guys know, or whoever you're talking to knows why you're there, and you know why you're there.
Yes.
So there's no mystery. You're
Correct.
not a plumber.
Correct.
Okay. And they know you're there to talk about inbound marketing. If you're lucky, they remember your company name. If you're even luckier, they remember your name.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And
But
honestly,
not much more than that.
yeah. So a lot of times, like in my role right now, a lot of times people will just book on my calendar.
Okay.
And in my calendar notes, I have questions that you have to answer if you want to book on my calendar. And it's like, what would you like to get out of the
So
call?
you're qualifying.
So I have an idea, but I still like before, like, hey, I'll even mention and be like, hey, I noticed you want to talk about, HubSpot's capabilities today, but like
You're
anything
Salesforce
more
customer, you're thinking of becoming a Salesforce customer. You
Yeah.
want to talk to HubSpot, or you're talking to whatever they call SAS or SSA, whatever they call it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like,
Okay.
what are you looking to get out of today?
Yeah.
And that could go a million different ways.
Okay. And you're listening to that as opposed to in the old 1950s, 60s approach, you'd say, or the old IBM approach, if Mark were here, would be, we're IBM, we're really good, don't ask questions, and here's the bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't do that. Instead, you say, so you ask.
I
And
ask.
you listen. And
Yep.
then presumably listening means you actually then say something relevant to what they said.
Yes.
And it responds to it.
Yeah. So what I'm listening
novel thought,
for
yeah.
is any type of business challenges today. Why are you taking the call? Are you taking it to explore to see what's out there because things are going great and you think they can be better? Or are you exploring HubSpot because you're drowning in one area?
Yeah.
And really capitalizing like on that pain or gain either way. So if there's a problem, then I want to hear more about the challenge. I want to hear how much money is that costing you. I want to hear how much time are you wasting because of this challenge.
Well, how about solving their problem as opposed to listening to this sounds like the infamous blood money, which is, oh, so your driveway's full of snow. You need to get to work, eh?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that'll cost you $1,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the so-called blood money. So clearly,
Okay.
I hope you're listening for more than
Mhm.
you're listening, not only to the cost of it, because that may play into your answer. You're listening to see whether you've got a product that actually. Because I'm hoping you'll say, "Hey, look, frankly, we're no better at that than our competitor. We all have a problem with that. It turns out we're 10 times cheaper, or we're actually more expensive."
Yeah.
Will that ever happen? Painful to think it would, but
Yeah. I mean, like, it
I must
depends
say
on
I've
the
done
salesperson. Yeah. It depends on the salesperson. And I think, like, you just want to be spending as much time as you can with, like, the right opportunities.
okay.
Um,
Right, because I guess in the end, you can bullshit your way through the call, and everyone can seem friendly and the sort of kumbaya atmosphere.
right.
But the bottom line is they're going to call your competitor anyway,
Yeah.
so you don't want to waste your time. So okay,
Exactly.
Theoretically, that makes sense in theory.
Yeah. And
Okay.
and then I think, so, like, from there, like, I ask, like, understand what their challenges are. And then,
You're amazing. You actually keep on track. I keep trying to pull you off. Keep going.
no, you're good. So I'll ask what their challenges are. And then from there, it'll, like, something that we'll commonly hear is like, yeah, we're a small business. We're just not getting enough leads.
Yep.
So how I'd respond to that is like, tell me more about that. Like,
Yep.
what do you mean by that? How many leads are you, like, these are all the questions I'm asking. And obviously just ask one question and then just stop. Sometimes I'll just go on mute because it's hard.
Yeah.
But how many leads are you getting today?
Okay.
10. Is that good? No, we need to be 20.
Okay.
Okay, you need to get 20 leads. How are you, what have you tried in the past? Well, we've tried to use Salesforce, but their thing, they have trouble like qualifying leads, or they don't have this specific feature. Okay, like, what if you did have that feature? What, like, would that help you? And the whole point of it is to be leading them down the path, like really listening though, like, because if you're leading them down a path to a solution that you don't have, then they're not going to go with your solution. But if
I mean, the
does that make sense?
terminology is troublesome from a non-sales perspective, I
Yeah.
would think somebody listening to this would say, I mean, the terminology using, leading them down the path, listening for their pain points, all unfortunately carries with it the baggage, the car salesman baggage of the 50s and the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s,
Yeah.
and the 2000s, because car salesmen are still a problem.
It does. It does.
And I would like to think in my business, sure, there's a huge sales component, but number one, they're competitors in our business, always will be, have to be, otherwise it's not really a business.
Mhm.
They're competitors, and you need to be able to produce a product at a price that makes sense in any number of ways. So the listening needs to be directed to, yeah, we can solve that problem in a manner that's cost effective for you and cost effective for us. So the terminology is troublesome, is my point, because it's laden with, I'm not reprimanding you, I'm just telling you my reaction to it,
Right.
which is it sounds so salesy.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we could say sales meeting ought to be, full of Girl Scout cookies and tea, and people ought to talk about how nice it is. And sure, we make a boatload of money, but we really run this like a nonprofit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
like a charity, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's not. You follow my point?
It depends. Well, yeah, I think that's why it really depends, and that's why I think the question of like, what are you looking to get out of the call? Like, what are you looking to get out of today? It's like so important, because if they want to talk about something, like if they're like, I want you to tell me about HubSpot, tell me why you're great, then it's like, cool, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that.
And that's now you jump into the 1950s, 60s mode, and you start spouting features.
Yes, exactly.
But you don't know which ones to spout unless you know their points of pain, what's troubling them. I guess I just want to hear, and I'm getting back at the entire sales industry through you. I don't want to hear you're leading me down the path. I want to hear you're listening to my questions so that you can say, okay, I think I get it.
Yes.
You opened the call by saying you were interested in HubSpot or Salesforce or this or that.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked you enough questions that were relevant to my product and gave you a chance to talk. And it sounds like what you're really having problems with is tracking people who initially came to the site and then took 3 months to get back. You, for some reason, perceive rightly or wrongly. We can help you with that, because frankly, we've learned that's not the problem. Warm leads that turned into useless customers that came back as hot leads, which I think happens in every business, if there must be the right terminology. Mm-hmm. We've learned at HubSpot or Salesforce or wherever, those aren't really the problem. The problem is you needed to get them when they were initially contacting you. So let's talk about that. In other words, you're asking questions not to lead. I'm getting back to the sales industry.
Yeah.
You're asking questions not to lead them down this freaking path. You're asking them questions to find out whether A, you can educate them a little, and B, whether your product is cost effectively a solution for everyone involved. We don't want them pissed off because they return it after an integration period. We have to give that money back, and we don't want them to waste the time and money also. So I want to say you ask questions to find out whether there's a match. That seems like common sales terminology also. Yeah. And
like, if you find a challenge that you can't solve, then it's not worth your time. Like it's really like, you have to know your product, because you have to know the things to listen for.
So why do you guys use, I'm not going to get off this. How do you guys use that terminology, lead them down the path? Because I'm assuming you're trained that way.
Yeah, I think because
it's that sort of aggressive, and there's no reason sales can't be aggressive, but you can be persistent.
Yeah, so I think it's like, if you find a pain, like, you want to make that pain hurt for the prospect.
Well, there we go again.
I know, but like, it is what it is, because like, at the end of the day, if you don't find a strong enough pain early on, then when that prospect gives you pushback later, you don't really have any leverage. So it's like,
I agree.
So as a salesperson, I want to get pain up front. I want to get,
what I'll argue you want pain up front to help, number one, focus your pitch.
Yes.
Your pain point seems to be warm leads that go cold, but they later come back as potentially hot. We agree with you, and we can solve that problem. And here's the module that we would sell to you with our basic package that tracks that, and here's how it tracks it. Now that to me is not exacerbating the problem in their mind. It's not amplifying. It's sort of like, yeah, we can solve that problem. How would that work for you? Oh, that sounds good. And it's not being pushy. It's just sort of like, we can solve that problem.
Yeah.
And by the way, not only can we solve that problem, we can get into it if you want to, but it turns out we probably can do a lot of the other things you're doing. As a matter of fact, we find a lot of those warm leads aren't ever going to come back, and we've got a way to prune that out. And you can do this all for about half the price of the rest of the business.
Yeah.
Or we cost a little more than most of the competitors you're going to talk to, because I'm sure you're talking to other people. You need to be. Other companies, other competitors. You need to be. But I think what you're going to find it a little more expensive, but here's where it pays back. That to me is a less aggressive approach. And I'm not saying it's sort of a Pollyanna-ish approach to sales, but does it work? And is that what you ultimately end up doing? And simply in the locker room, you talk about kicking their asses and leaving them.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, as someone who's like just starting their sales career almost, like that's kind of the foundation is like.
Give me the aggressive kick their ass, rip their eyes out approach, take no prisoners.
Well, it's like, I don't know, because I see myself as like a very like friendly personality, and like approachable, and I think like that, like this like
we'll put
pain
that in Pollyanna camp.
Like I think like the pain / like aggressive approach is not like, that's not my strength.
So why is that taught?
Well, I think it's just because like people are hesitant to change, and if you don't have a challenge that's large enough. Like, because like at the end of the day, like your business can still function at the end of the day, probably without marketing software.
Right. Your car can run with one flat tire.
Yeah. Like it's not like mission critical, but you just mentioned to me that your goal is to double your leads or to make sure you have 10 more qualified leads per month.
I guess to me, it comes down to being more, you want to be the trusted salesperson, then you want to step into the shoes of the advisor. And the advisor says, look, I know you called me because I'm an expert in Salesforce software, I'm an expert in HubSpot software or IBM software, I'm an expert in that. But let's talk the big picture here. All the products you're looking at, I suspect, can do what you're saying. The forte of us is price or not price. It's our forte is blank, and we think that's in the end going to be the best for you. I know you're talking to all those other people, and I could tweak your what do you call them, your sensitive spots so that you're going to think when this call is ending that we're the only solution. But I'm sure when you go home and talk to or go back to work and talk to your VP, you're going to realize the other companies are tweaking other spots. Yeah. So isn't that the role of the advisor? Isn't the role of shouldn't the salesperson be an advisor first and then a trusted advisor saying, here's why you would buy us after you do your complete process? Or is that just too mamby-pamby Pollyanna-ish? No, I think that's super fair. I think it really just depends. But you're using terminology that suggests it doesn't. Well, it depends on the scenario. I think if you say, if it depends on how the call was structured. So to take a step back, like the two scenarios would be, I'm cold calling someone. I say, hey, I have a great solution for you. I really want you to, spend 15 minutes meeting with me. I really think it can help drive business to your website and then really capitalize on that engagement. Okay, this is a cold call. Okay, so I'm intrigued by that. Yep. So you say yes. I say yes to not to the sale, but to the meeting. To the meeting, exactly. Now you got me at the meeting. So now what I'm trying to do. I'm marginally qualified because at least I responded positively to the push. Yes. But now I'm in more aggressive mode. Yeah. Like now I'm trying to poke at you, trying to figure out, what are you doing today? What challenges are you running into within your marketing stack? I wouldn't call that aggressive. That's inquisitive. Inquisitive and persistent. Yeah, I like that. For sure. But if you give me a challenge, we don't really have visibility into who's coming into our website. Yeah. Like, oh, how long has that been an issue? Does that cost you? Like, do you think that's costing you money? They may not know if they knew. Yeah. So by asking your questions, you're hinting that there's a problem here. Well, yeah, you are advising them. Mm-hmm. And I guess you're saying, contrary to what I said, we're not going to go out of our way to point out that all the other products do this too. They'll learn that on their own. Yep. So you're sort of losing points on the trusted advisor there, but you're assuming they'll kick that up. Yes, and I think at the end of the day, like if you're like if you say we don't have visibility into that, like, interesting. Okay, well, what about this? And then at the end of the call, be like, hey, here's HubSpot.
we show you have full visibility into all of your marketing efforts. Here's revenue. Like, look at all these cool things. Like, do you think this would be helpful to your business? And then from there, it's like, now I see, like, I get why he's asking the questions.
So some of it's semantic. Some of it's semantics. I think that's a fair way to characterize it, which is you've got a choice of your time. Okay, I think you're running out of time. Are we good?
Yeah, I probably have like 5 minutes left.
Okay. So it's sort of a semantic question, which is it's one of you're saying, I say to them, do you think it would be helpful if you, which I would call a leading question because the answer invariably is yes, it would be helpful.
Yes.
The response may be no, in which case he's kind of shut you down, in which case you'd say, well, that's a funny answer. Then I beg to differ because our customers generally find it does help. So it may be semantics or just the way you put the question, because I would argue you could also say, instead of sort of we can cut the chase and say, look, we've found, don't know if you're doing it, but we found it's often very helpful to do X. Are you doing that now, and is your software doing that for you? Because we're really good at it.
Yeah, and not all the time they're gonna be like, yes, this is what we need. And I think it's just like, cool. Like if you say no, like if you were to say no to that, like, okay, like completely get it. Like maybe there's not a great fit here. Like what if you had to ask, like if there's one or two things like that you could change about your current processes today, like what would that be?
Right.
Like what do you really care about?
Yeah.
And that's where I think it's like you're listening because you're not trying to force a solution down someone.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out, you're trying to probe around like, what does this person actually care about? How can I help this person? If I can, are they willing to pay for a solution that's going to help? How deep is the challenge? You know, how badly do they want the solution? And if they don't, then there's nothing you can really do about it.
Right.
But
you may follow up with them, over a few months. Okay, so this is Failure the Podcast. Where does the sales, and I know you're running out of time because we spent so much time doing what sounded a lot like a HubSpot ad.
Yeah.
So,
seriously.
We'll cut it out. We'll put it on fast play. We'll play music in the background.
Yeah.
They'll
see us talking about it.
Yeah, they talked about HubSpot for a while.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is that podcast. So where does the sales process fail? Where does an otherwise potential sale that probably could have gone through fail? In the realm of everything we talked about.
Yeah. I mean, I think like to tie it back, if the pain's not strong enough, then people are resistant to change.
The perceived pain or the actual pain? Because there's a difference.
Well, both. I mean, like I think
your fingernail hurts? Oh my God! Your fingernail? How much does it hurt? How much? Wait a minute! But any fingernail pain could be cancer. It could be cancer. It could be your whole arm. Now, how does it hurt? Oh, it's kind of hurting a lot.
Yeah. All right. Well, I take it back. But I think, like in general, if you find a business pain, just because like the process of bringing on a new software,
it's painful.
Is painful no matter what.
Yeah.
People have to learn it.
Yeah.
You're probably going to run into a few barriers, and people are resistant to that in general. So what you need, like a lot of times when, people will just like go dark on you and they won't answer. It's because you didn't get them excited about the platform, or you didn't provide enough value.
And this is a sale that otherwise should have happened.
That should have happened. And I think like, the biggest opportunity for salespeople.
This is why you talk in these aggressive terms, because your view is I have to make the pain seem super strong while I'm on the phone with them, because it's going to be a little while before I hear from them again. Unless they're motivated, they're not going to take my call.
It's truly an art, because you don't, excuse my language, but you don't want to be like a dick.
Well, you lost the family friendly rating. You don't want to be a dick. Yeah.
But you're trying to make the conversation as conversational as possible, and like you're trying to be an advisor while also still getting this pain. And I think that's like who the best salespeople are.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day,
they seem like an advisor, but many of the answers point to their product in the end anyway.
Yeah.
And the pain that they made you perceive seems to be around that portion of the solution set.
Definitely. And I think, but like at the end of the day, as a salesperson, if you have the mindset of I'm genuinely helping this person, like, because I have like, yes, you are like trying to get a pain, but the software is really good. Like the software can really help these pains and can really solve a lot of your challenges.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it's genuine. And I think
is it possible to, we're almost done here, rather than focusing on pain, and I'm just asking, this is Pollyanna-ish, is it possible to focus on sort of the excitement of getting rid of a problem?
Absolutely.
Oh, this is going to be great. I got to tell you, this is a great match. Our product and your solution, we can really solve that. It's going to cost you about the same. And frankly, we're charging $100,000 a year for this thing, and the installation is going to run you about $200 when all the dust settles. So keep in mind, this is like moving from your 2-bedroom house, your family of 6, from a 2-bedroom house to a 4 or 5-bedroom house. You're going to love it, but it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And it's going to cost.
Yeah.
But when you're done, you're going to be happy.
Yep. And I think that's really important to just like lay down up front to let them know, because like you want to know that right away. Have you ever made a decision like this to buy software in the past? If yes, are you aware of how like typically our timelines are this and it takes this long? So I think there's a lot of barriers that as a salesperson, that's like a whole nother way to think about it too, is like, you got to get, pricing. Am I talking to the right person who's actually going to influence?
So you got to qualify that you're qualifying the lead.
Mm-hmm.
Now the failure on the sales side is number one, wasting time on non-qualified leads. 2, once you have a qualified lead, not if it's a sale that really should go through, it's not making overblowing a little the importance of this transaction going through to give the deal inertia, because time tends to suck the life out of a deal. So you need to make it important enough. It's not like going to the car salesman at the used car lot on a Saturday where you're going to make the sale that day. Oh my God, this car will solve all of your problems and it's free.
Yeah.
You're not going to solve, but because of the inertia built into this process, the failed sale could result from not sort of exacerbating increasing the perception of pain.
I think the failed sale has no tiebacks. Like if you're able to tie back, for example, if you're getting ready to buy the software, we go through a sales process and you say, yeah, you know what, we're going to hold off for now. Me as a salesperson, as my tieback would be, well, you just told me that you've tried X, Y, and Z. They haven't worked, and someone's going to be let go if you don't solve this problem.
Right, but you may have lost them, but I guess you just got to do your best to bring them back in, or they go into your tickler system to contact me. What, in a month, a week? Is this one that goes on to 6 months?
It depends. It depends on how big the company is, how big the transition would be.
Okay, if it sounds like the guy or the woman is distracted because you can tell it's 5 o'clock and her kids need to get picked up, or the guy's got to go pick up his kids to bring them to the soccer game, you may say, I'll call him back in 3 days. If on the other hand, you can tell they're just beginning to get into the process, it may be 6 months.
And at the end of the day, the people are going to do what they want. But it's just like, hey, I mean, you did say this respectfully, it's your decision, but you did say that you're going to have to let someone go. Like, and I just wanted to make sure, like, you're keeping that in mind. And like, we truly believe like we have.
I hate that. I hate when the salesperson says to me. Last question before you go.
Yeah.
So a good batter in baseball is sort of hitting 300, which is roughly 1/3, getting on base or better.
Yeah.
Is 300. Sales has got to be more like 100, or is it like 0.1? What is good sales?
It depends on the product.
Yeah.
The better product you have, the higher the number should be.
How about as a Tesla dealer? What's for a Tesla dealer? What would be a good batting average?
I mean, the people that are small. Well, it depends. The people that are coming into the store, like
at the Natick Mall, there's a Tesla. Used to be a Tesla thing.
Yeah,
a showroom.
I mean, you probably get people
car and black shirts and round glasses and all that.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably around like 40 to 50%.
No,
just because I mean, a lot of people will go in there and just like look around, but people that are like actively talking to the car salesman.
But a sale's only a sale when you sell.
Yeah.
Don't you figure it's like 1/100%? Or are you saying it's better?
Are you saying like of the people that talk to the representatives?
You only get, as a baseball player, your batting average is only when you actually get on base. As a Tesla salesman, isn't it only when you sell at least a car?
Yeah. So do you mean like people that are coming in and talking to?
Yeah. If I'm one of the.
Or am I like outside trying to coach people in?
Mock turtleneck. I'm sitting in that store with a mock turtleneck and little round Steve Jobs glasses or whatever they wear in the Tesla dealership. I've just been hired. I'm your age, and I guess you potentially could have done that. how would they rate me as a good salesman at what percentage of the bodies that walk in the door and talk to me versus the number they buy? What percentage could I expect will buy a car?
With something like Tesla that's really high value, I'd say probably 20%.
Really? 1 in 5?
Yeah, because I think a lot of people that are coming in there, they already have intent.
Yeah.
They have some type of intent. They're there for a reason. A lot of people, 4 out of 5 people will just stumble upon
What's
it.
good for you then? What's your good batting average for your business? Of the people you talk to, lead you get,
I would say,
how many do you convert to a
I
sale?
would say probably 40.
No shit.
Reason is, and like, the reason I say that is because we have a full suite of products. So like, you or me could buy something online. You know, I could speak to you, say, hey, you know, our starter package, which is $25 a month, would be the best fit for you.
Got it.
So go ahead and buy that.
Got it. That's smart. Good answer.
Yeah.
Okay, Cal, many thanks.
Of course.
I don't know.
This is fun.
I'm not sure how much of this will end up on the cutting room floor, but we'll find out.
It's all good. I like it.
Thank you, sir.
Good stuff. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, yeah.